when is the time we're going to recognize that everything really is changing? Um, we're seeing in the Gulf, we're going to start to see a lot of people die because it's not being. Some reports are coming out of how bad it is from some workers. They're starting to speak up now, but and we're hearing that NATO is coming in there to save the day. And from my perspective, the absolute only time that I would trust change is actually happening is when we get rid of all of our current justice systems in every country. As long as there's one guy making up the decision of what's right and wrong, they already admit it's not the perfect system, but it's the best we've got. And now is the time that we need to start getting something completely different. Because while you say this isn't the perfect system, you aren't really recognizing that that's a system for criminals. It's a system for criminals to get away with crime. It's a system where big corporations can kill people and not be responsible or accountable. Every single law that's on the book is designed for a criminal to get away with crime. And as long as we say, oh, there's some guy guilty, there is a higher chance that everybody that's in jail is actually innocent than how many criminals are actually getting away. They don't really care about who's actually committing crime. They only care how it appears socially. So if they get one guy that they can um, lay blame on, they don't really care whether the guy is guilty or innocent. It's not a law for the innocent to be protected. It's a system for criminals to get away with something. And the only way I was really, really woken up to this was through my own court battles, which was child support. And I'm only relating child support because this is basic law. This is, how could you go wrong with child support laws? Kids live here and the parent with the child collects the child support. So how in the world do the kids live with me and I pay child support? And that was an ongoing thing for 9 years. There was no fighting that. And it's because he had the money and I didn't. And he had the balls to be that stupid, to make it look that blunt. Like a lot of criminals don't make it look as obvious as this guy did. Um, and basically it's because his math was so bad. When he was calculating how much I owed him, he didn't really look at the fact that he's causing an overpayment where I owe him money. I mean, you have to look at the math, but basically it was his own ignorance of math and trying to get away with something that actually ended up me owing him money for kids that live with me. Plus, he can't get dates right. And when I went to court, um, perjury and fraud was more than proven. Fraud is when you try and manipulate to gain. Fraud is a lie, and so is perjury. Basically, I'm going to just talk in basic terms, but basically they're both lies. And if you lie under oath, then that's perjury. So, I mean, if you lie under oath and say, I didn't work, and I provide the courts with his pay stubs during the time he's saying it's not work, that's evidence. That's open and shut. You committed perjury. If he says that the kids live with him under oath and provides no evidence whatsoever, but I provide, here's the school records, completely different province than he lives in, I give consistent proof and evidence against every statement that he makes. That's perjury. I've even mentioned it in front of judges that this is perjury, and every judge ignored it. And I've repeated before, I had gone into a police station and said, hey, if I went into a judge and told him I served my ex when I actually didn't, then I lied about where my kids live and lied about my income, would I be breaking any laws? And they said, yes, that's obstruction of justice, that's fraud, and that's perjury. Those are serious crimes. You can go to jail for that. You can't do that. So I said, okay, I'd like to report a crime. And all of a sudden, there's no place I can report a crime to. So you can't go to the police with crime. You can't go to prosecutors because they say it's a victimless crime. If it's a crime, usually there's a victim involved. So their perceptions of crime are completely screwed up. And if you mention it in front of any judge, they totally ignore it. So when I see, and I'm only using my experiences and tried to keep my head together so that I could communicate with other people so you don't fall into the same trap that if you're using this justice system and you don't have as much money as the other guy, you're going to lose. Plus, if you're a Freemason, guess what? They got little handshakes and signals to let each other know, hey, I'm a Mason and you're a Mason. A lot of these judges are Masons. So they let people off just because they're Masons. So when I see change, I will only know change is happening when we get rid of our justice systems and every friggin' law in the books. Because most of them, which I won't get into a lot of them, but they're full of crap. They're like copyrights, you know, rights of ownership. There's a lot of corruption in that because you can come up with something, but you can't afford to pay for the rights to get it, so somebody can steal it. They can steal it just by you writing the form out. There's so many ways that you think you are protected, but it's not. It's where the corporate world can actually take advantage because they have the money to do so. And there's been time after time that people that have come up with ideas first that have had things stolen from them, and there's no way of getting it back. So it's like, if you can't tell who owns what, then there shouldn't be a law of anybody owning anything. If it's out into the universe and you can earn a living through knowledge that's out in the universe, because let's face it, nothing is a new idea. You're always pulling, well, if this guy is putting this out and this guy's putting that out and you put the puzzles together, then the puzzle together is a new thing, but it's not like it's totally yours. Do you then owe money to this guy who gave you part of the idea and that guy who gave you part of the idea? I mean, Tony Robbins, for instance, I've read some of his books. All of the information in his book is stolen from somebody else. He just wrote what everybody else was talking about and put it in a book and called it his own. So does he owe money to all of the people that came up with all of the hard sciences? I think not. So again, I won't feel that there's any change in our universe. There's no hope for humanity as long as we still see our current justice systems. These are just wealthy judges that the law does not apply to them. You're supposed to report a crime if you see it. So if a judge sees a crime in front of his courtroom, he puts two and two together, he knows the law, he keeps his mouth shut until he's ordered to do so, only by a high-paying attorney. If you represent yourself, they don't have to follow you. They only have to follow high-paying attorneys. Otherwise, they get to keep their mouths shut and not obey their own laws. And they always will perceive what's relevant based on their wealth. If they're in poverty, then they can't even comprehend what is good evidence that gives reason to why things are happening. So a lot of evidence isn't even being allowed into courts, basically because these judges' perceptions, say, well, that's not relevant. And it's like, damn right that's relevant. Everything is relevant. Every information needs to be put towards a problem so you can understand a problem and then find out what's truth. But if you're only giving part of the information, you ain't ever going to find out truth. Truth is about sharing all information in our justice systems, no matter what country it is. can't tell right from wrong right now. And although my experience was child support, it was open and shut. And if it happened to me, it's happening on all levels of justice. Peace out.